Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is Tamara Andreas. She is an international transformation seminar leader, personal transformation coach, and the co-author of the book Core Transformation: Reaching the Wellspring Within. So this is my brief introduction to you, Tamara. Oh gosh, now I'm really careful around your name. But the full bio will be at the end. So how we were talking off record already for a little bit, getting to know one another. I feel like I know you already by being in touch with your work. It's so beautiful and profound and resonates with me at all levels. I have like this beautiful devotion for healing and spirituality, and I often connect them. The more we unblock our what's blocking love and peace and joy, the more we really get to live spirituality in an embodied way. So thank you so much for the work that you do. The first question that I usually ask everyone is always this one. How would you introduce yourself? Who is Tamara in this very moment?
Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, thank you for the question. And who is Tamara at this or Tamara at this very moment? Well, I am a teacher and a guide, and I'm also in my personal life, I'm a wife and a mother with a grown son, an adult son, and that said, because he's out of the house now, I'm kind of
Mm,
refinding,
uh-huh.
myself in a new way. Like it's a transition for me when he leaves the home, and so, yeah, so I feel like I am really, finding ways to connect with myself and others, kind of anew, and with the whole thing of, you know joining with our path, with our path in life, helping people to connect and take steps
Mhm.
toward, towards really blossoming and being their own true natural self. That's
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
love
what my
that.
life is about right now.
Yes, thank you for sharing that, like this in this present moment, and that's the reason why I asked the question this way. I phrase it that way for a reason, so we kind of focus in the moment, what's happening now, in um, what we have fixed or believed ourselves to be, right, from the past or the future. Some of us do that too. So, I have a question for you that I usually ask mental health facilitators or psychologists and therapists. I'll ask you too, and I'll give you a little bit of my understanding of it. So, I have heard that mentally healthy person is one that's very flexible, a mind that's can adapt easily to situations, circumstances, people, environments, and challenges, especially, and etc. So, how do you see that? How would you? What is your definition for mental health or being mentally healthy?
Hmm. Yeah, so for mental health, and you mentioned to me as well that you have a certain spiritual perspective as well.
Mm,
So the way that we kind of come at mental health is that mental health and spiritual health are actually the same thing.
mm,
And the people in both fields who we consider to be the very best in both fields are going for the same goals, even though they make different assumptions, oftentimes, and they have different language for what they do. I definitely agree with what you said about there's a mental flexibility, an emotional flexibility, and that happens naturally when we're coming from what we could call a spiritual state, and when we have integrated a spiritual state with our lives. So it's not like an escape that we go to,
mm,
but it's a sense of our beingness, our oneness. These kinds of states are integrated with our lives, I think would be, of course, I'm just making this up on the spot here, but I think that that's a pretty good definition then of mental health.
Yes, a billion times that I agree with. And one of the topics that we're about to discuss that I think I'm titling this episode exactly like this because it caught my attention. Core states, a game
Mhm.
changer for transforming emotional issues. So, and then
Mhm.
I read in your book about the five core states, and that is being, inner peace, love, okayness, and oneness. So it kind of comes together, right? And I did read, there's a part in your book that's written by your sister too, and her name is,
Connie
oh, I forgot
Ray.
her. Anyway,
Yeah, Connie
Andreas.
Ray
Yeah.
Andreas, and she's the developer. Sorry to interrupt there. I know there's a little bit of a lag here. She's the developer of Core Transformation and my co-author of the book that we wrote
Mm,
together about
mm.
30 years ago now.
Oh, wow, 30 years ago. I'll put the cover here. Talk to me about the book. So I'll have the cover here. I
Mhm.
do. You have written lots of books, though. I saw many of them on your website. This is not the only one. So I want to show all of them while you talk to me about the core message of the book and the main intention to write a book like this. It's truly comprehensive, and it has everything there. It becomes almost a kind of a Bible for mental health and emotional health. That's how I felt it.
Yeah, yeah. Just to clarify, so my sister Connie Ray and her husband, who has now passed, Steve Andreas, they have written many, many books. I was co-author with Connie Ray on this one. These
Oh,
other two there that you see, the Wholeness book, that was written by Connie Ray. That's her newer material. Heart of the
yeah.
Mind was written by Connie Ray and Steve, I believe, and that one is from some decades ago, and that's a collection of um,
Heart of mine.
different topics and different methods. So it's not, the whole book isn't about one method, it's about different ones. Whereas Core Transformation, the whole book is about this one method, and same with the Wholeness Workbook, that's about that method. And so, yeah, and the purpose of writing the book is to bring it to the world. So
Mm,
what we want to do is empower people to have the steps that they need to change their lives, to transform their ongoing experience of life itself and of themselves. And so, and going beyond just how we think about ourselves to
mm.
our visceral experience of ourselves, and allowing our choices to flow from there.
Oh, I love that. Yes, right. That's the whole idea, isn't it, Tamara? That we can kind of tap into our essence in a sense. What really resonates with our being at any level, and kind of connecting them. All these realms: the mental, the emotional, the physical, and the spiritual. Some people they add other aspects of being, but I think that would be enough to live a
Yeah,
beautiful life if we can do that. I have a question for you. One of the title, not the titles. The titles of the chapters. Section 1, yes, says befriending the unconscious. That really caught my attention. Can you talk to me for a moment about that? But also answer this question that I have asked other people. What is the difference between the subconscious and the unconscious?
okay. Yeah, so for our work, it doesn't matter. So what we mean by that word unconscious is it's that aspect of our mind, or we could even say our mind body system, that produces thoughts, feelings, and behaviors automatically. So, for example, consciously, I might say, well, I want to change something. Like I feel anxious and I don't like feeling that way, so I want to change it.
Mm,
Well, then obviously, it's not the conscious part of our mind that's producing that. The conscious part of our mind wants to change it. So it's an unconscious part of us that is creating that automatically. And so, yeah, so that's what we mean by unconscious.
that's automatic. It is just doing, yeah,
Yeah.
something that, right, it's not conscious. Yeah, it's the
Yeah, that's
opposite.
that's the source of experiences that happen automatically, and for our context, when we don't want them to. It's like, so I
Mm,
don't
mm,
want to
yeah,
be eating
yeah,
certain foods.
yeah.
But I have this craving that happens automatically, and so that comes from the unconscious. Or I there's a thought pattern of, for example, some limiting belief, or thinking I'm not good enough, or that kind of thing. Um, I don't want to be thinking that way, but it happens. So it's coming from the unconscious. That's how we're using the word. And so, yeah.
Right. That's fascinating to see what we call parts in that in the book you mentioned that you talk a lot about parts, and I'm familiar with that. And I mean, my reference, although I have language these days for from psychology and all that, because I've been
Hmm.
doing this work for a while, and I'm very curious and I read a lot. But intuitively, it just makes so much sense. You know, I used to ask those questions all the time, like, who is speaking? There's so many voices or forces or that's kind of driving us in our behavior and what's happening. And that's funny because at some point it becomes very confusing. Like, who is listening? Who is trying to stop listening? Um, who is aware of both of the listener and the one who is speaking? I mean, it's just so interesting to see that. So I would love for you to kind of bring a light and clarity to those who yet don't quite grasp and I would love to understand better from you how it works and how are these parts formed, are they
Hmm.
real, and how what do we do to kind of identify them and bring them in harmony.
Yeah. Thanks. So that's several questions. I'll see if I can remember all the
Uh,
questions
oh
as I
yes,
go
too
along
many.
here. No, yeah, no worries. So, yeah, so the first thing, are parts real? I'm going to start with this one.
Mm,
And the way that we think about parts is that it's a model. So it's a way of thinking about our experience. So it's a map or a model of it. And then we just don't worry about if they're real or not. Actually,
mm,
though, through
mm,
do the thing is, we don't want to, by how we perceive them, we don't want to make them even more real. We don't want to increase our sense of inner separation. And so, what we actually do with core transformation is we work through this parts model, and then through the process, we end up integrating these parts of ourselves so that we end up having more and more sense of wholeness, of
mm,
going
mm,
through life as one person rather than a
mm.
sense of being so divided into parts and being going through life as a committee of parts, that kind of thing.
Yes, and I have another question about that. Thank you. So, what would that look like, Tamara, from the perspective of, our day-to-day living? What would that look like?
Mhm.
An integrated person. Could you give an example to us?
Yes. Okay. So, as an example, let's just say that my experience is that I find myself eating cookies, even though consciously I don't want to. So, so,
Yeah.
so that lets us know that the parts model fits. There's something that happens that I don't want to happen. So we could talk
Mm,
about it as being a part of myself that is getting me to eat these cookies. Okay. Now, by working with this part with core transformation, well, what we do first of all is we welcome the part. Some of your listeners
mm,
might think, well, why would you
yeah.
welcome it? I thought you didn't like it, right? But
Yes.
these parts, they all want something positive. So we
Mm,
welcome the part that gets
mm,
us to eat the cookies, and we
mm,
thank it for being there. We ask the part, what do you want? And
uh,
these parts, they always want something positive. So this one, it might want
yeah.
to feel comfort. It might want to feel filled up. It might want to
Mm,
even feel love. So
mm,
so there's a wide range of possibilities, and we don't know what it is until we ask that unconscious part, "What do you want?" And then through the process, we help this part reach deeper and deeper outcomes, deeper and deeper experiences at once, until it gets to what we call a core state. Like, it might
mm,
want a sense of oneness or beingness or some
mm.
kind of inner well-being state, that
Yeah.
then this becomes really transformative, especially because we found this through the part. So we didn't go out and get a well being state and now try to
Mm,
impose it on the part, right?
mm,
This is the deepest yearning of this part. And so then the
Um,
core state, just I'm not going to go through all the steps, of course, that would take too much time. But so then the core state of this part, there's some more things we do with this, integrating it through the beliefs and the behavior level of this part. So we transform this part with the core state. Then we actually invite the part to evolve up through time. So if it was formed when we
mm,
were a small child, then the
mm,
core state allows it to evolve up through time and then allows the part to integrate. So then what happens is, so then here I am as a whole person,
mm,
and I can make choices as a whole person. And for the most
mm,
part, I'm probably going to make choices that are pretty healthy. And at the same time, there might be some times when I'll make a choice that isn't as healthy. But in the greater scheme of things, it's all okay.
mm,
But I can make this choice as a whole person, so I don't have to feel like I'm struggling with myself to choose what to eat. I can make a
mm,
choice from my being as a whole.
mm. Yes, yeah, that makes so much sense. It resonates. True. And I also love what you said about it's not about perfection in a sense that we are whole and now we are perfect. We don't make mistakes. We don't make any unhealthy choices. It's more like being conscious even of that. Even if we make an unhealthy choice, we are conscious of it. Ah, I just, I mean, that's what it feels
Yeah.
like to me. Is that what
eh, eh,
is that correct? Yeah.
we could say that, yeah, or we're making a choice out of as a whole being. It's like, all right, now I'm going to do something a little different than I usually do. Here we go. I'm going to
Mhm.
have a cookie, or whatever it might be. And so, and in the greater scheme of things, I also have this awareness of my body, and so I know that I'm not going to just get sucked into overdoing it, and that said, for me, what's congruent for me is to make really very healthy choices with my eating pretty much all the time, and I never feel as though I'm depriving myself. That's the
Ah,
thing. That's the
yeah.
difference, is that I can be very consistent in eating
Mhm.
healthy food, and it
Mm.
feels good. It feels so good to do it, and I'm not
Um,
ever having to fight myself over it.
mm, yeah, that's really clear to me. So there's no sense of guilt or shame. Yeah,
Right.
that's not there. I see. Yeah, that because that would be, in a sense, almost like that. There's another part there that's kind of a punisher.
Yes.
It's punishing you for doing something. Is
Yes,
that?
exactly. I'm so glad you said that, Valeria, because for all of us, all of us who are kind of on a path of wanting to change, well, that suggests we have an awareness that some of our behaviors just doesn't work that very well, or our feelings or our
Oh,
thoughts just don't work very well. And so, how do we approach these? Do we have a sense of shame about it? If
mm,
so, then I consider this to be a very high priority part to work with, the part that feels
mm,
shame,
mm.
because that kind of response actually tends to hold those patterns in place. It tends to make it harder to really change, to change in the way we want to change, of coming from wholeness. And so
Mm.
it's so valuable to transform those parts that have a sense of shame.
Right, because that's huge. I heard there's a personality disorders, many of them, that's the core
Mhm.
kind of feeling that they keep doing some, they engage in a lot of unhealthy behaviors because of shame. So
Mhm.
they would lie, they would steal, they would do horrible things. And I mean, those are narcissistic, but personality disorders. But then, of course, psychopaths are different. They will have no shame, they still do horrible things. But that's a different kind of brain, I would say. So I have a question for you about, like, my case has been boundaries. So I'm
Hmm.
still working with that part in me that it's always when I say no to somebody, and I really mean say no, but then I feel not shame, but I feel guilt. Like something, there's a
Mm.
part of me that
Mm.
says, another part, oh, you should just do that. Why don't you help him or her? And then, the other part of me is like, no, but I really didn't want to do that. And I was honest about it. But then it keeps coming, that the voice that says, making the other part feel, yeah, guilt for the decision. So that's something that I'm still struggling with. Oh,
Yeah. You
and
know, for that kind of issue, definitely core transformation can be really great. Sometimes it can change that kind of pattern, even just in one session. Um,
oh,
Now, that said, there are times when I'd want to actually do another method alongside of core transformation for this kind of experience. There's something else that we teach in our core transformation training called aligning perceptual positions. And
mm,
that really specifically is about getting clarity of this is me, that is you. And
mm,
so, to have clarity. So when we have clarity about that, then we don't need to work so hard at defending our boundaries, because we have clarity.
yeah,
So then, we don't need to do all of
mm,
that. And
mm,
so that's what I would
mm,
suggest would be good for this, in addition to working with the part that feels guilty about saying no. Um, or any
right.
other, there might be other parts also related to that, but that for sure, that stood out to me in what you were saying.
Yeah, yes. So you would work, yeah, there's a different approach, a different method that you would work along. Yeah, because it feels very challenging. I think for some people that I have some people that I have come across, I talk to a lot of people, I know a lot of people that has been very it was a challenge for them when it comes to working with people with personalities that I think they call like bonding, yeah, and codependency and all that. It's really a challenge
Mhm.
when, because this is especially, let's say, well, I'll give myself an example. My ex-husband, he had this very overpowering personality that he wanted to control every aspect of my life and what I
Mhm.
think, the way everything, my emotions. I mean, it was so controlling in some ways, and I was always giving in to that because I didn't know what to do. And
Mhm.
and I see a lot of people have that. Still have that issue, and it's still in me now. I'm working on it, but I see that we tend to attract people that kind of um, well, I don't know if I would say take advantage, but they just, because I don't want to put myself in a position of a victim. It's not
Mhm.
being a victim, but there's something about, there's two aspects of personality. Energetically, we
Yeah.
attract one another, narcissist and
Right.
empath. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And so here I'm going to talk about a more advanced way of using core transformation next. So the first thing to do, though, with what you're describing is to work
Mm,
with the reactions that you are aware of having yourself. That sense of not being able to say no, or
mm,
of being kind of compelled to help somebody, to try
yeah,
to save them, or to, whatever it might be. So to work with those aspects that we're noticed in ourselves, that's the first step. Now,
yeah, yeah,
there is an advanced, though, approach, and that is we can recognize, as I think from what you're saying, you're already really recognizing this, that the other person, especially when there's a pattern that I keep attracting that kind of
yeah,
person into my life,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like in some way they represent a dissociated aspect of myself. And
Mm,
so,
mm,
and I'm not saying that you're like that other person, because you're probably totally different from that other person in terms of
mm,
how you come off to people, how you behave, and etc. And at the
right.
same time, as whole human beings, the way that we look at it is that we have everything. We have all the human patterns.
Mm, mm,
And
yeah,
so
yeah,
and
yeah,
so when there is something like that controlling aspect, if we have not integrated that in our own nature, then we're more likely to attract that to us in somebody else who's exhibiting that as a pattern. And
Mm,
so at an advanced level, we can use core transformation to integrate those, parts of ourselves that we have that we don't even identify with as being belonging to us. So yeah,
mm,
yeah,
yeah,
that can be
right.
super super empowering then, because then
Mm,
then we can go through life and just kind of attract to us, the more balanced we are, the more we attract to us more balanced people as well.
mm,
So then life just gets better.
yes, yes, a billion times of that truth. That there's always this two parts that I think they call it. It was Carl Jung. He calls it shadow work, the shadow side. We all have both, so it's not just. And then by now being able to say no, which in being assertive, that would be more like, let's say, the narcissistic personality, that they are not really just do whatever they want to do, and they don't really care about other people's feelings. But then with the people like me, for example, to come to that balance. The challenge was I realized these patterns when I was in a relationship already, in the marriage.
Mm,
So it was really difficult to change because now the only way would be to just get divorced because I couldn't. I mean, you can't really change other people, right, Tamara? We can
that's
change
right.
ourselves, but then if the other person
Mhm.
cannot change or won't change, then we have to leave. So it's a challenge for a
Yes.
lot of women, a lot of people, not just women, but a lot of people.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally agree. And to me, we can't change the other person. I agree with you 100% on that.
Yeah.
And what we can do is we can gain clarity within ourselves of what is okay with us. What do we need to
Mm,
in order to be in a relationship with somebody? And of course, if we go to the extreme and come up with some kind of perfection standard, that's not ever going to work, because
no.
nobody's going to be able to live up to that.
Right.
And so and the more that we are in a state of clarity within ourselves, the more that we can discover really what is acceptable, what kind of foibles can we accept in somebody, and that's
Mm,
okay,
mm,
and what things would really need to change in order for us to be
yeah.
okay in this relationship. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. I know you. That's really great for relationships. Do you do that too? Do you work with couples? Is that something that you do? People
I
who are married.
normally work one at a time, and that said, I do sometimes work with people on relationship issues,
Yeah.
because they want to change themselves. And so, yeah, I actually did work with somebody recently on this very thing, wanting to gain more clarity about her relationship and, yeah, and all of that. And yeah, so yeah, it's very much a thing that we can do. And as a result of doing core transformation with that, what usually happens is both a sense of clarity and also a sense of, like, I'll be okay either way. I'll be
Mm,
okay if I stay with the
mm,
person. I'll be okay if I leave.
mm.
And yeah, um,
Yeah, that's a big
yeah,
one. That has been for
totally.
me. Yeah, knowing that I'll be okay with or without it. Right. That's why it's very important. I guess that taps into some social, kind of sadly in a way, issues about women that we have been in a society. We had the disadvantage, especially some women, women of color or women. There's different kinds that then we kind of, yeah, that's a sad thing because there's another challenge to kind of tap into in like societal things, right? That you didn't have the let's say the upbringing, like in my case, has been very much the unmothered child, and then
Mhm.
living through trauma and then not knowing no clarity whatsoever, and then trying to kind of find my way back to myself. And then being a woman was really difficult because I'm not saying that's easier for men, but it's not easy for anyone. but it's harder, I guess, because then we feel like, in a sense, that we depend on them, that they're stronger than we are, that they have more ways in life of surviving, but we then kind of taps into that survival mechanism too. So now we're dealing with, I
Yes.
mean, there's so much, right, Tamara, to
Yeah, it really can be, yeah. So, like, there's an example of a woman that I worked with, one time, and in her case, it wasn't she had left the person or was deciding to leave the person, but her boyfriend left her, and she felt abandoned by
oh
her ex-boyfriend, and she was obsessing about the ex-boyfriend. And so, then
yeah.
as we were working, we discovered that the unconscious part of her that felt abandoned believed that the only way she could feel safe and loved was through him. Now,
Mm, right.
consciously, she was a very smart person. She knew better than that.
Yeah.
However, that is how this part felt. And so you mentioned survival. So yeah, so this
Yeah.
part didn't feel like safe in the world and
Yeah.
didn't feel loved except through that person, or that was the
Mm,
belief. The belief was it had to come through that person. And so
mm,
as we worked this part, there were a bunch of other limiting beliefs as well. Um, and
yeah.
then through the process, we got to the beingness level for this part. The part's deepest yearning was for a core state of really deep fullness.
Mm,
And so then through core transformation, the part gets to actually have it, to have this deep fullness. So it's not just an intellectual idea. It's a
mm,
felt experience that this need has been fully met in a way that
mm,
doesn't depend on anyone. And,
mm,
and when this part of her was stepping into this, I could just see her whole
mm,
body melt. So there was just this kind of palpable glow, because it's not just an idea; it's a whole experience. And
wow.
then after there, it's like the beingness level of this part was satisfied. Then the rest of the parts experience was all transformed with this sense of fullness. And so now, for the first time, this unconscious part really knew that the sense of fullness could actually be there from the inside, whether or
Mm,
not that ex-boyfriend was even in the picture at all. And
mm,
so, yeah, so that was a profound learning, even though intellectually that's what she knew was true all along.
right.
But as far as this unconscious part of her goes, it felt like it needed that person in her life, until that part got its deepest need met of, in this case, fullness. And then that allowed the whole thing to change. And this transformation was actually, again, just in one session. That doesn't mean everything changes in one session, but oftentimes there's a significant shift that can happen in one
Mm,
session. And so then, we met again after that, and she wanted to work on something else. So,
wow.
yeah, so that's just one example
Yes.
of the kind of phenomenon you're talking about here of, and I think you're right that it's not that men can't have this as well. It might look a little differently sometimes on a man compared to as on a woman, but
Yeah.
there can definitely be this inner sense of, like,
Mm,
my well-being depends on that person. Um, and so and that is a wonderful thing to work with core transformation. It fits it just so well.
right. That's one of the things that really caught my attention in a beautiful way about your work. The word core, in a sense, to me, I translate it as essential, like the foundation states for
Yeah,
something. So the word
yeah.
wellspring too, it's just, yeah, it's very inspiring and it resonates true. Um, One thing that comes to me a lot is from a spiritual perspective that we kind of here for the experience of duality because we are not dual as spiritual beings. We are not physical.
Mhm.
So for the physical experience, it's really beautiful though to have that, yeah, that that shared kind of reality in a sense, that we do things together. I guess that's one of the things that, the idea of love, but I think we get lost in there, in that part, thinking that, I need somebody else to kind of be happy or feel full, feel whole. And that might be the main issue. So a part of me, it's funny how talking to you, I can see like one part can just really holds us back, even if we have one part that believes that we are not, that we can only be whole if we have somebody else. So what is with that in mind? I'll ask you this question. So, what is the main purpose of relationships in this case? Is that something that you have found from your experience, that we come together to learn these things, to learn to be whole? Is that the reason why we kind of engage in unhealthy relationships? I'm
Yeah, well,
wondering.
that's a really good question. A little bit philosophical, but I'll take
Yes.
a crack at it
Yeah.
here. So, so yeah, so I think that whether that's part of a design, part of a life purpose, I
Yeah.
guess I can't speak to that. However, what I can say is that for sure we can utilize it for that. That being with others and noticing when our buttons get pushed, which no matter how healthy our relationship is, there's always going to be some way in which our
Yeah.
buttons get pushed, right?
Yeah.
And so when we have something like core transformation, then that can actually be like, all right, I've discovered something I can work on here to become even more whole. It's like, thank
Mm,
you. So it
yeah.
actually can become a gift. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I might not
Yeah.
really say thank you out loud, but it
Right.
actually is on a certain level a gift to become
Yeah.
aware of something that I can work on within myself to become more whole. And so yeah. And then the more whole we become and the more healthy our relationships become, then we can be together increasingly, we can be together less out of this emotional need and more
Mm,
out of a sense of emotional blessing, you know so we can
yeah.
add more blessings to each other's lives. And
Mm.
yeah, and so you know that's basically a wonderful way to go through life, I think.
Yes, I absolutely agree, because that becomes more playful too. I feel that just by the way you said it too. Yeah, we kind of say thank you, but within our inner voice, because we know the work that we are doing here. Yeah, of becoming, so becoming whole. It's not something. It's not an event. It's a process, isn't it? And you've been saying that throughout the conversation. It's a process that evolves. It's not a destination. That's what it feels to me.
Exactly, yeah, totally.
So we're almost at the end. I have so many questions for you. I would love to stay. God, we still have 10 minutes, Tamara. So I'm wondering, because I got the guided questions from you, and one of them was like the 15-minute, the experience of core transformation. So would you prefer, would you do that, or should I keep asking you questions? Because I have a lot of questions, you too, that were unasked. But
Okay,
you
so
choose.
it's totally up to you. Of course, I'm happy to do either. And that said, the group guide, what works well for a group guide is if I can actually guide you. So I'll be asking you about what responses you're noticing, and then I'll also kind of guide everybody else at the same time. So yeah, so
Yes,
if
I
if
like
that's
that.
something you'd like to do, and of
Yeah,
course
yeah.
we won't have time to get through a whole process.
Right.
Um,
Yes,
but the first few
absolutely. To have a
steps,
taste. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, so everybody can get a taste of the beginning of the process.
Yes, yes. I'm ready.
Okay. Okay, great. And so the first thing for you and everyone to do is to pick something to work with that's kind of on the mild to medium end of the scale, because we're not going to have time to transform the whole thing. And so it's nice if we're going to leave something hanging kind of in the middle, it's nice
Yeah.
to explore something mild. Um,
Yes.
and so, yeah, so for example, could be somebody pushes your emotional buttons, or for somebody, it might be losing temper over little things, like getting mad at somebody while you're driving or something,
Yeah.
um, or feeling hurt when somebody criticizes you, or feeling stressed or blaming yourself for things, or just, anything that happens in your experience that you'd like to change. And do you have something picked out?
Yes, as you're speaking, I was just trying to, it's almost like, yes, somebody lied to me recently.
Okay,
That was a big
someone
thing.
lied
Yes.
recently, and so then you wanted to change then your response to that. Is that right?
Yes, yes, because it's one of my
Okay,
values. So I was really upset. I'm still am.
okay, okay. So you got upset. All right, and okay, and you consider this to be kind of medium, so it's not like super
Um,
intense.
no, it's not super intense because I've been doing
Okay,
a lot of work. I do spiritual work with it, energetic work. So
okay.
yeah, I'm good.
We'll call
Yeah,
it
that
medium. Okay, that sounds good.
medium.
All
Yeah.
right, and everybody out there can also just pick something mild to medium to explore, a feeling or a behavior or a thought that you'd like to change. And now, go ahead and this is easier to do with eyes closed.
Mm,
So, yeah, just let the eyes closed and your attention go inward. And that's right. And just notice all the space within the body and the space around. And just, gently relax and notice your inner experience. And now think of this recent time when somebody lied to you and you got upset. Or for everybody else, think of a recent time when it happened, the thing that you want to change happened. And then step into the situation as if it's happening right now. So you can see what you see at the time, hear what you hear, notice the feelings that go with it or the thoughts or, what that go with this. And so since you didn't consciously generate this experience of getting upset, it's as if an unconscious part of you did, we could say, right? So
yeah.
now, yeah. And so now just gently sense in your inner experience, where do you sense this inner part is?
In my heart.
Okay, in the heart. And so
Yeah.
please, and everybody else might notice it somewhere else. It could be anywhere in the body, it could be in the space around, and wherever it is fine. There's no right or wrong answer. So now, please welcome this part. Thank it for being there because we know that it wants something positive. Yeah.
Mm, yeah.
And yeah. And now on the inside, please ask this part, what do you want? So just kind of let this question drift over to this location of the part.
Mm,
What do you want? And then you might get an answer that's an image or words or sounds or a feeling. And
mm.
what happens for you?
Um, yeah, it wants to trust this
Mhm.
person because of safety. It feels safe when trust is there.
Okay. So it wants to trust this person and feel safe. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Thank this part for its response. And everyone else who's listening, you might or might not already be noticing a response because, I'm guiding you from maybe thousands of miles away and,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
not one-on-one. So it's okay even if you just get this far with us with the process. Just beginning to notice the part, identify a location, or even to guess a location is fine if you're not sure, and thank the part for being there. That in itself is already enough for most people to start noticing at least a little bit of a shift in the experience of it.
Mm,
So, now that said, if you did get a response, whether you understand it or not, if it was words or pictures or feelings, anything, just please thank this part for the response. And now, so invite this part to step into or breathe into what it is like to already have what it wants. to already have
Mm,
trusting this person and feeling safe for you, Valeria. Or for the others, if the part wants love, invite the part to step into what it's like to already have love. Or if the part wants something to happen in the world or to be successful at something or whatever it is, invite the part to step into what it's like to already have this fully and completely,
mm,
just the way the part wants. And then ask this part, when you already have this, what do you want through having this that's even deeper, even more important or core?
mm, mm. Yeah, it goes back to love. So
To,
it's a way of
mhm.
feeling loved. So to feel loved seems
Okay,
like that part, yeah, needs to be, those two
okay.
elements need to be present: trust and safety.
Okay, great. So, what the part wants through trust and safety, feeling safe, is to feel loved. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so thank this part for its response. And everybody else, if you've gotten a second answer, thank the part for its response. And now invite the part to step into what it would be like to have this one fully and completely, feeling loved just the way that it wants. And in fact, it would be fine for it to step in even beyond what it's ever experienced before,
Mm,
or even beyond what it thinks is possible. We're
mm,
inviting it to step into feeling loved just the way that it wants it to be. That's right. And then ask the part, as you're experiencing feeling loved, what do you want through already having this, through already feeling loved, that's even deeper yet or more core?
mm. Yes. It's a sense of peace. It would be peace.
Sense of peace. All right, and
Yeah.
thank this part for its response. And everybody else also, if you have a response, thank the part. And now invite the part to step into what it's like to already have peace, or just invite the part to just breathe it in or relax into this sense of peace.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, just allowing this peace to be more
Um,
and more present. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So that's freedom.
Oh,
So
okay,
it
so you're
could just
getting
be
another
free.
answer, freedom.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And thank the part for letting us know already what it
Mm,
wants through peace. It's freedom.
mm,
Yeah.
mm,
And so, for everybody watching and listening, you can continue at your own pace. In fact, if it's recorded, you could just pause it and continue at your own pace. Every time you get a response, just thank the part for its response. Invite the part to step into what it's like to already have this one, this next one.
mm.
And then ask the part, what do you want through this that's even deeper, even more important or core? Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it wouldn't have to do this work of being guarded and
Hmm.
always protected or watching over, or yeah.
Hmm.
So it would relax, and it wouldn't have to do this work of always watching for
Right.
something, for danger.
Right. Won't have to be watching for danger, can just
Yes.
relax. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Well, because I know you have a time frame, this might be
Mm,
enough to explore for now. I'd
yes.
love to keep going with you.
Wow.
That might be enough to and
Wow.
by continuing with this, as you know, sooner or later we get to a core state. Now, sometimes peace can be a core state, or it isn't always. Sometimes it's a step to something else that's even deeper, you know.
Mm,
But
wow.
eventually, what we get to is something, that is beyond having or doing or knowing. It's,
mm,
not in relationship to external circumstances or other people. It's
mm,
something that just is. And,
mm,
sometimes there isn't even any word for it. People just make up a word
mm,
and call it isness or something. And then we check to be sure if that's really the core state or not, and then go on from there. So
oh,
yeah,
oh. I love that. I
yeah,
love this. I would love to continue too. I know we are on a
I
time
know,
yeah
I know.
limitation here, but yes, it feels really that way. So that was interesting to see it. Freedom, that seemed to be like it was the end, because that's when you integrated, and then and then that's wholeness, and that's free. But then it's
Yeah.
still talking, still kind of trying to express itself, that part, like, because
Okay.
you asked the question,
Okay.
and then like, oh, then I would feel like I don't have a job anymore, that part. The one
Yeah.
that's,
So
yeah.
so what you're saying is it got to freedom and then wholeness actually, right? And
Yes.
then it said, then I wouldn't have a job anymore. So you know what? Actually, wholeness might have been the core state for this part.
Ah,
Okay.
right.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes when a part actually reaches the core state,
Mm.
then instead of saying something that's going deeper, it's giving a consequence of it, like, "Oh, well, if I already have wholeness, then that just changes everything, right?
Right.
And I
Right.
don't need to do what I was doing, whatever it was I was doing. I can
Mm.
let that go now." And
Right.
so that
Oh,
might be what was happening for you. I'm gonna guess that's probably what was happening for you, is that the
oh.
part got to the core state of wholeness, and then it began the next phase. We don't have time to do the whole next phase,
Right.
but it
We
it
need
it
to.
began the
Yeah.
next phase, which is
Yeah.
allowing the core state to transform the part's experience. Yeah.
Mm. Oh, oh my God, Tamara, I would love to be in touch with you after this. Yeah, for the second, that will be yes. I'll just make a note of this, and I'll contact you after here, just for the record. But then
Mhm,
I want to mention your website. So Andreas and NLP.com. That's the website.
mhm,
I also
mhm,
want to mention that you have so many, wonderful resources and services on your website. The core transformation that you've been talking here and demonstrating too in a very clear way. And thank you for doing that, because I know I wanted to get more into it, like letting everything
oh, I
flow, but I
know,
know
me
we don't.
too.
Yeah. Oh, we'll meet again.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
you have the wholeness work. That's another service. You have metaphors of movement, self concept, post traumatic stress disorder, to work, NLP practitioner training, and lots of other resources. Under resources, there's so many free kind of content and videos. I see you. Lots of things. So it's very generous of you and loving to do that, because I know some of us who cannot yet do the sessions, or kind of engage with the paid services, we can have a taste for it with under the
mhm.
resources. Would you like to add anything else as final thoughts? Any final thoughts for the end of the conversation, Tamara?
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And first of all, I just want to say what an honor it is for me to be here with you. And thank you so much for this introduction to your people. I understand you care so much about your community that I feel very honored that you're introducing me to your people.
Mm.
And so, and then secondly, is just my wish for you and everyone who is watching or listening is that um, you make the choice to take the steps to reunite with your true inner essence. And when we get to our true inner essence, it's always positive, sometimes much more positive than people think it's
Mm.
going to be.
Mm.
And it can really make all the difference.
Yes, a billion times to that truth. And it really does. Sometimes it's very simple, actually. As you said, in one session, it can change so much. So thank you so much for the beautiful work that you've been doing and that I consider spiritual. It's Yes, I can't help it but think that way. So thank you so much for being you, for being the guide, to so many souls, to wholeness, and for saying yes to this conversation. Thank you, and we'll talk
Oh,
again. I would love to meet you again. That's for sure. So I'll talk to you off record, and we'll be in touch again. Thank you so much again, Tamara. Bye for now, my dear.
awesome. Yes. Thank you so much. And bye.